Learn how to loop through object properties using the for in loop. So in this example, we are going to look at how for in loops work during iteration with objects in JavaScript. For in loop goes through each property in an object one by one, as you will see in this example. So if you hear that for in loops goes through each property in an object one by one, it's simply referring to the properties of an object. So here I have some comments in order to outline the steps that we need to take in order to make this example together. So the first step says create object person. So I'll go ahead and make a person object. And now that I have this person object, what are the things that I want inside? Well, let me add f name, which is simply a shorthand for first name, and call it John. Then I can add last name, L name as a shorthand as well, and call it Doe. And I can also add age, 25, which is fine. Now that I have this object person now, so the step 2 says create empty string, txt. Create empty string, txt. So that means I'll go ahead and select txt equals to an empty string like this. Now step 3 says use for in loop. So now I can go ahead and use the loop and say for let x in the in part person txt, which is what I have for my string here, plus equals person x plus space. Now step 4, access each property using person x, and that exactly is what we are doing here. So we are trying to use the object to access each property of the object. Step 5 now says add values to text, which is what we just did here. We have added the value. Use for in loop and add value to text. So which is what we did here. So we added the values from this loop into this text. And finally, you can display results. You can go ahead and display the results, get element by ID. Now you see John Doe 25, which is very correct. And that exactly is the behavior that we expect. So what we just did here is that the object person is created. We loop through each key, like the first name, last name, and age with this part. For this is just a means of representing a variable. So it could be let y, it could be let age, it could be let name. So you can use anything to represent where you want to store value. But the most important aspect of what he did here is this for and the in keyword. So both are keyword. For let x in person, which is the object name. Then we use person x to get an individual value from the property. Then we are now adding that value into a string, and then we are displaying the result here. So what the for in loop does is that it loops through the keys, which are the first name, last name, and age. And the x here represents each key, and we are use object x, person.x here to get value of each of the property in that object. So the for in loop gives you a flexible way to access all property of an object dynamically. And also this is one of the main ways to iterate over object data in JavaScript. Key things to note are this. Number one, loop works on objects. As you can see that this for in loop was used on an object. This is the object here. Then you can also access values using bracket notation. So you can access the values of an object with bracket notation, and that exactly is what we did here. So the value of each of these property are being accessed to bracket notation in the in this section. And also loop is useful for dynamic data. Instead of getting each of each property one after the other, we use loop to get all of them at once.